What's up, friends? I am here with the Nakto Santa Monica e-bike, and this guy is pretty cool. Now, you're probably used to me having all these like folding style e-bikes here, so this is the first time I've had like a beach cruiser. So I'm super excited to get into that, especially because the snow is melting outside, and I'm ready for summer. And this is summer vibes all around. It's just like, it's what you imagine going down the pier on a nice sunny day or something. I don't know. I can't wait to ride it. So I'm doing the part component first. I'm filming that today. And then once the snow melts, we'll get outside and give it a ride. Maybe hopefully later this week, because we're this close to spring here in Michigan. So I'm excited to get into this one. It is from Nakto. I like to, I've reviewed a lot of their bikes, so I like to kind of preface this with a couple words about them. So first of all, they have sent me this bike, so I want that totally clear. I did not pay for this. This is sent from them, but I do promise to just be as transparent as possible, as I do with all my other e-bike videos. And if you have any questions at all, drop them in the chat. I do also have a link from Nakto if you'd like to buy it. That does help support the channel a little bit too. But other than that, I don't get paid from Nakto at all. But this is just, they send me the bike to review. So have to get that disclaimer in just so you know exactly where I'm coming from. And I've done a lot of other Nakto bikes, and they've become a favorite for one reason, and it's mostly just because if you weigh the cost versus like entry point for e-bikes, they're pretty great. So they have tons of options under $1,000, which is hard to do in the e-bike land unless you go to Walmart and get one of theirs, which that's a good option for some people too. But for a first-time e-biker, I actually always almost steer them, hey, check out Nakto first, because you don't break the bank. If you have to resell them, they hold their value pretty decently. So another good thing is, if you're first getting into e-bikes, always check Facebook Marketplace. Some people buy these, use them a little bit, and don't use them anymore, and they sell them, so you could get them for a good deal. But yeah, so like, let's say you buy this today and you find you're not riding it. Well, one, you won't be out too much money, and then you always sell it on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist or wherever you go, and only be out $100 or $200. So I always like to say that to people who are e-bike curious, because it's hard to get them past that like price point of like, is it worth it? But like, worst case, I always say, hey, just sell it, and then you're out. Like, you could use it all summer, sell it at the end of summer, and then you're out like $150 or something. So I don't know. Just my thoughts there. I know I'm off subject. We haven't even talked about the bike yet. So let's dive into this thing. So it's already set up here, but I filmed the installation process. So I'm going to talk about my thoughts that I kind of ran into as I was setting it up. So we'll start front to back here. And we're mostly talking bike mechanical components in this first part. And then we'll get into e-bike, kind of like the electricity, the motor stats and all of that good stuff, and then we'll finish it off with a ride and real world test. So starting from like the mechanical components here, we have a headset that's on the cheaper side, but the pros of this is it's very easy to install. All you have to do is line it up with the fork, tighten it, and you are good to go. Same thing with the handlebars right here. You just tighten it, and you find a length that works for you, and then just lock it down. Talking about actual components for a second, nothing special. You got the cheap shifter that you get with almost every e-bike nowadays is the Shimano, just basic 8-speed. And the drivetrain, we'll talk about that too right now. It is totally just it's nothing great. It's probably on the way cheaper side, if I'm being fully transparent here. But honestly, you can get away with that on e-bikes, especially if you are not pedaling a lot. And if you're getting a cruiser-style e-bike, something tells me you're probably into it for a very light pedaling. You're not, taking it off trails or going anything like intense where you need a nicer drivetrain. So this will do the job just fine. Just know that it probably can't handle a ton of stress if you're looking to do anything crazy or anything. The derailleur, on the other hand, is a decent one. It's a Shimano Tourney, which is like the cheapest name brand one you could get, essentially. So that's a good way to look at that. It's nothing special again, but it will do the job. Moving along, the seat I want to talk about because it is cozy. You can't quite see it. Here, let's... Oh yeah, baby. That's nothing but some big butt protection. Perfect. Exactly what you want to see on a cruiser-style e-bike. It's funny. I have an actual really nice tripod right behind this cheap, terrible tripod I'm using, and I don't know why I'm using this one. but we're going with this. Okay, what's next here? The fork, I gotta say, is actually really beefy and impressive. I've seen a lot of e-bike forks, and they are usually cheap. Not that this one isn't like super, like, it's not, obviously not top. Nothing you're getting on this bike is top of the line by any means, but the fork does impress me. You got a lockout system here, which is, they didn't have to put that on, and you know, it's cool that they have that. How well does it work? We'll have to find out later, but it's there. And then, of course, the other side is a cap to add oil. And while we're talking about oopy-goopy liquids, grease, if you're buying this bike, also buy a cheap thing of grease. You are going to need it. It came with, like, maybe that much. I tried to spot out what was greased on this bike, but, like, nothing was. And you're going to have metal on metal on metal unless you grease this thing. So, like, when you're putting the pedals on, make sure you're greasing that, because that will just wear through, and you'll break through that threading in a day. And then things like the wheels, chain, obviously, derailleur, get some grease on there. Grease is your friend on these cheaper bikes, because otherwise they will wear on each other and they will break even faster than they were meant to, which probably might happen down the road, because let's be real, they're cheap brakes, cheap mechanical brakes, but again, they do the job. At least they're disc brakes. They're like nothing really to say about them other than that they will work just fine. Make sure you do a little work on them. I had to tighten all of them up. One of them was even missing some spacers on the front brake, which was a little annoying, but luckily I have a bunch of bike parts here, so it's easy to fix. So thorough inspection when you're buying any of these cheaper Nakto bikes. Look it over head to toe and make sure all the parts are there if you see anything. They're really, as far as all the like Chinese brands I've worked with, they're really good about getting you supplies when I run out or something wasn't shipped or whatever, which doesn't happen often, but don't be afraid to reach out, I'd say. Light, really easy to put on. Nothing special here. I think it's like the same that comes on almost every e-bike, but it's nice to have a headlight. And then the last and most disappointing thing about this bike is the tires that come on this guy and the wheels in general. The wheels they got thicker spokes, which I like to see, because I don't know, you're never going to have a light e-bike. So the more they build out the wheel, that's always going to be your friend on an e-bike. But the wheels these came with is just like the cheapest rubber on this thing. It feels like the rubber that will just harden overnight one day and then just crack. I hate to see it. If you're going to buy these, maybe look into maybe even some like cool slicks that came on like the old fashioned beach cruiser. That might be a cool way to deck this out. And that's another thing with this bike you could do, is because it's at a semi lower price point, you can buy some extra stuff and kind of make it your own, which is pretty cool. All right, so now let's talk controller and battery now that we went through most of the parts here. Oh, in case I haven't said this yet, this bike comes in at just $100 over $1,000. So really close price point on almost any bike within this level. So I would call it $1,000 e-bike. I'd like to maybe even see it in like the 900 range, but there's some things on it that are pretty cool. Like this battery style is built into the frame, and I really like that. So we got a 48-volt battery here, and it's claiming to have a overcharge protection, which what I'm hoping, the downside of like 2 out of the 3 or 4 Nakto bikes I've worked with have been, they've blown fuses like crazy. So yeah, so I've had like there's fuses in the battery of like the Nakto Ox I reviewed, and yeah, I couldn't figure out what was wrong with it. Opened the battery up, the fuse broke, which again, it's like $1 or something to replace, but it's really annoying to have to do that or to keep it with you when you're riding, because you don't want to be stranded and then have a fuse pop. So hopefully that's what this overprotection can do. I'd love to see, like this is a newer, like kind of next step for Nakto here. So hopefully they're making advancements, because they're able to fit this smaller style battery on here, which I love. And hopefully that means they're advancing a little bit with their technology and not going to be blowing any fuses this time around. But it's mostly just to make sure you don't overcharge it and just that the battery lasts longer overall, which if this is a long-term bike, that's a good thing to look for. So again, that was a 48-hour volt, 10 amp hour with 762 watt hours in this bad boy. And then quickly on the motor specs, we are working with a ranged 250 to 500 watt motor. Like to see at least 500 on most e-bikes, especially if you're a bigger guy. Don't even touch anything without a 500 watt motor, which luckily this has. And we got 50 Newton meters of torque. All in all, I'd say it's just perfectly average. Again, it's not going to blow you away speed-wise, but it's going to do the job. And especially if you are like, I don't know, like I'm probably going to give this to my dad, actually, after I'm done reviewing it, because that's who this is perfect for. Someone like my dad, who he loves e-bikes. He's got a Nakto himself, and I think I'm going to have him swap it out with this one because he's got like a 300 watt motor, and I think he'd like the 500 watt motor on this guy. So I think someone, if you're, I don't know, and you're not looking to do anything crazy, but you love going on like casual e-bike rides, this thing is probably going to be perfect for you. And you're not going to be stressing it out, but you want to have a fun ride. You want to get into the 20 mile per hour range. You want to cruise around. This thing's going to be your friend if that's your goal. So a couple other quirks, if you will, about this bike. You do need the key in the on position to ride it, which I don't love. I kind of hate when e-bikes do that. And then on the other side, which I filmed earlier, is how you remove it. So you have to take the key out, bring it to the other side, and then remove the bike, which I guess I like that they're keeping it separate so you don't accidentally remove this frame battery. But at the same time, I would rather just have a key to get the battery out, and then, you know what? I could totally see why people like it for like theft deterrent reasons, though. So it's there. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you got to live with it. That's all I got to say on that. Moving right along, probably the last thing we'll talk about here is like the cockpit area. So this is the standard display that comes with just about every Nakto e-bike. What they've added on this model that I haven't seen in other models is a separate button for your headlight and for your... I realized I wasn't talking to the mic in there, but you have a horn and a headlight button, which used to be built into, it would just be like a double tap on that current button for the light instead of having its own button. So I love to see that. That's enough. If you have any more technical questions, just comment. I'm pretty good about answering those. But let's get outside. Let's ride this, and then we'll sum it all up. All right, I'm here because this is my new hill test spot. Man, it's so hard to capture how steep it is on camera, but we're going down it right now. It's a big hill. All right. Again, it's hard to capture on camera, but we got a pretty steep hill in front of us. It goes up, and then there's a hill after it as well. And what I want to do is just a throttle test. Again, I'm about 240 pounds, maybe a little more, but hopefully with summer hitting, we'll be back down to fighting weight. We're going to see the speed that we're going to get, as well as just if it can make it without pedaling, which I'm sure it can, but yeah, let's just watch how it handles it. We're going to try throttle only just to kind of demonstrate the motor power. I don't really like to get into the actual specs on these videos and dig into that too much. I like to just do real world testing you can see exactly how it's going to be for you. So let's go ahead and capture this hill. All right, so again, we're going to start from flat, and we're just going to only use the throttle. Ready? Without crashing. Alright, so we got a decent amount of speed, and the hill starts here. Oh yeah, see it working hard. And we're going about 10 miles an hour up it with full blast. Alright, but yeah, we didn't have to even come close to pedaling. And then we got another hill coming up here. And we'll give it some juice. And again, it can handle it, no problem. It definitely slows down a bit, not as powerful as some other e-bikes, but by far no slouch either. All right. Now we're gonna go to one bigger hill and give it a long hill test. And the cruiser style is fun. I'm having a blast. All right, now we are at a base of a very long hill. And we're just gonna give it throttle again and see how it can handle this thing. Now this is a probably good, and you just see it's the whole thing is uphill. And we're gonna climb. Again, I'm not pedaling at all, so we're just really giving the motor a workout here. We're going about 13, it says. And it's about to get a little steeper here. You can hear it working. All right, we're golden. Hey, that's my new house. Whew. It's coming along pretty decently, eh? Yeah, so this is the new house. Or, well, in 2 months it will be. So I figured I'll come here, I'll just talk final thoughts real quick. So, been riding that bike around for a little bit. First thing that comes to mind in some of the negatives, right? Because overall it's perfectly fine. I think I'm calling it the perfect bike if someone has a retirement party and you want to all go in on a gift for them. This thing would be perfect for that. And I say that because the motor isn't like super duper overkill. It's like really manageable for someone who it's like their first e-bike. It's not going to be like blazing fast, but as you saw me cruising around, it's enough for me to have fun, and I'm heavier too. So if you're lighter, you're going to get a little more speed on it than I am. It is of course regulated to 20 miles per hour as most e-bikes are. But you could do some Googling and break, I'm not going to get into that, but you could find how to turn that off, I think. Something I don't like on like all the Nakto bikes is the screen. Like for instance, the power meter on it, I noticed it's fully charged. I've literally taken it for like maybe a mile or two since it's been fully charged. And as you're like going up for hills, for instance, whatever it's using to like gauge power, it'll instantly say like, okay, you have half a battery all of a sudden. But then when you're at the top of the hill and then you're cruising again, it goes back to, 4 out of 5 bars. So things like that just could be kinked out a little better. It's not very sophisticated in its like battery and range estimates. So you got to use your head a little more than the navigation. But again, if you're going like on anything under than like a 15-mile ride, this thing is still perfect. And 15's a long bike ride, like for sure. Like even on an e-bike, 15 miles is a decent track. I think range-wise, based on the charge prior to this, I wouldn't expect much more than 20. If you are throttle heavy, which I am, when I ride e-bikes, I give it all. I'm not holding back. I'm not trying to max. I'm not hyper ranging. I'm totally just throttling and just cruising. So if you ride like that, you're probably you're not going to get more than 20 miles, and that's conservatively. I would say 15 is actually a safer bet. Anyway, one thing that's good is the levels of pedal assist, I think, are in very good increments. So a very beginner, so talking about the pedal assist now, testing that out. Like the lower end was actually really fun to ride, and I really appreciate that in some of these Nakto bikes. They found a good way to balance the pedal assist levels with the gear ratios, or it's just a coincidence that they happen to do a good job. But anyway, I always keep my cassette. Let's go look at that real quick. I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm always keeping my cassette in the lowest gear here. And I find that I keep it in the hardest gear there, and then I let the pedal assist, I change that instead of using any of the gear levers here. This is not great. It won't last long, so if you're using this a lot, it'll probably, the cable will get stretched out and all of that stuff. Just try not to use it unless you have to. Otherwise, you're going to want to go to a bike shop after about 100 miles probably and get it recalibrated. Unless you know how to do that, then you're good to go. But yeah, as I was saying, if you stay in that hard gear down here and then let the pedal assist do your work, it does a really good job, and it evens out, and it makes it so you feel like you're pedaling and getting like a workout, if you will. But the motor, you can still feel it too, so it just feels like you have robot legs, you can have fun, you could still pedal, feel like you're riding a bike, but you're going twice as fast as you would be. So that's like the pedal feeling I look for in an e-bike, and this definitely has it. So for pedal assist, it's definitely great. Throttle, pretty good. Wish it had more power, but again, for the price and what you're getting, is fine. Overall looks, I think it's a fun bike. It's not very practical for anything other than just cruising around. The suspension, actually, while I'm on that, not doing an amazing job. It's pretty shaky, and it might just be like the geometry of everything. But again, if you're on flat land and cruising, you're gonna have a fun time with this thing. So if you have any questions, I'll have the link for this bike in the description, of course. If you are interested in buying it, it does help support the channel a little bit, so I appreciate that. And you can always just ask me any questions at all about this thing, to some extent. Again, I'm not a genius or anything, but I've ridden it enough to have some answers for you. So I'll end the video here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.